Happy All Saints Day, everybody. If you know what that is. This is Hot 12 Hot News Talk Radio. Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. We've got stuff to talk about, right? Because I wanted to talk about Jalen Hurd yesterday. Jalen Hurd is transferring out of Tennessee. Butch Jones confirmed it. And so now we got to talk about it and what all this means. People are piling on Jalen Hurd. Okay, they don't like this. They don't like anything about his transfer. John Christ over at Saturday Down South. Who, first off, that is a great website for SEC fans. If you do not read that blog, what on earth are you doing really on the internet? Like, what do you do online? Like, you're banking? Read that blog if you're an SEC football fan. Like, I don't understand how this is possible. But secondly, John Christ is a good writer. I like what he writes, and I agree with him most of the time. But I do not agree with him here. Jalen Hurd and his transfer, John Christ wrote, is everything that's wrong with college football. And I don't agree. I don't agree. I understand why it's frustrating. And I understand what is at least a little disturbing as a trend about it. But I don't agree that it's everything that's wrong with college football, because once again, we have done this thing with college football where football and what it stands for goes up on the pedestal and the actual human component is diminished. And then when you take into account the fact that it's college football and the NCAA is involved, the student athlete, I'm saying that in quotes, by the way, student athlete is someone who matters even less than the average athlete. Like, you can watch the NFL, and with all the flags and with all the penalties, you can see the NFL trying to somehow scrub any sense of personality out of the game of football so that all that we have left is just the football. The college football already perfected this. Well, we call them student athletes, and they do whatever they're told because they're student athletes. They're getting an education. Just listen to everybody around you. Oh, and we're not paying you either. So, yeah, Jalen Hurd is transfer. It's frustrating to a lot of people. I understand why. I just don't see it as everything that's wrong with college football. I really don't. Also, LeBron James threw a Halloween party, and I have to ask this question. Is LeBron James 12 years old? Is he 12? Because he had some Warriors-themed things in his party, and I thought, okay, here's LeBron James being a little bit goofy, but, like, I'm not saying he went over the board in terms of what is respectable and what is reasonable. And, oh, my goodness, that joke was inappropriate. There was nothing inappropriate about what he did. It was just so childish. Is LeBron James actually 12? We'll get into that. And, of course, Game 6 of the World Series is tonight. Tomlin is pitching for the Cubs. Kluber is pitching for the Indians. It is a win-or-go-home situation for Chicago. They've got an opportunity to extend the World Series to 7 games to get a chance to win it for the first time since the Ottoman Empire still existed. That's right. That joke was coming. But it's my favorite one. The Ottoman Empire, which you vaguely learned about in your history class, and remember, they still existed the last time the Cubs won a World Series. And if the Indians get their way tonight in Cleveland, that will still be a fact. Kluber's pitching. He's hard to hit. And the bats tend to come alive for Cleveland in Cleveland. So this is not a great situation for Chicago. But before we jump into any and all of those things, I'd like to talk to you about where you can find us. I recommend Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube every single time. Just give us a search if you want to see what our live shows look like. This show, Clutch with Keon Rose, is streaming live on YouTube right now. If you've ever wondered what it is that I look like and you want to be horrified, it's after Halloween, but my face is still my face. So take that however you want to take that. You can also go on over to the Facebook page. We've got the radio plugin, Hot News, Talk Radio. Search it in your search bar. You've got us streaming 24/7 on Facebook. Come on now. Noogaradio.com is where you can stream us as well. And the TuneIn Radio app for those of you with lives on the go. Search Hot News Talk Radio in the app. Give us a favorite. Press play. you'll have Hot News Talk Radio every single where that you go. That is Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, and the Tune In Radio app. Listen like you mean it. So ESPN, well, not ESPN. I think actually the show is coming on either Showtime or HBO. Ben Simmons and his one season playing basketball at LSU is now starting to talk about his time there in college, because Ben Simmons is not American. Okay, so Ben Simmons doesn't grow up with this idea that he owes the NCAA anything. Ben Simmons went to college because the NBA has a rule that says you have to be 1 year removed from high school before you come here. And that's why Ben Simmons went to college. It is the only reason why Ben Simmons went to college. If Ben Simmons could have gone to the NBA directly out of high school, he would have done that. And once upon a time, you used to be able to. Kevin Garnett and Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard, to name a few guys, went to the NBA straight from high school. But the NBA felt like too many guys were trying to come straight from high school, watering down the game. You had some busts come from high school, right? The Kwame Browns of the world. And the NBA is like, you know what? No, you take a year, you develop, you add muscles to your body, you add all of these things before you even bother coming here. No, you can't do it. So Ben Simmons forced to go to school. Ben Simmons knows if Ben Simmons entered the NBA from high school, he would have been the #1 overall pick. So you're really just delaying him a year, so far as he is concerned. Ben Simmons went to class in the first semester, made B's and C's. If you were eligible to play basketball, if you're eligible at the end of the first semester to play basketball, you can still continue to play basketball. So Ben Simmons stopped going to class, was just not interested. Teachers and people were trying to say, like, hey, let's punish you. Let's try and figure out a way to get you to go to class. And he's like, why? I'm going to the NBA next year and making millions. I'm majoring in basketball, right? And so Ben Simmons is now talking about all of the things that goes on in the NCAA and how people have offered him money and things, and how if somehow this was all about an education, why are they having me pose and take pictures for hours and sign memorabilia and talk to the media, things that the student athlete is obligated to do if it's just about education? Because all of these things I'm doing while I could be studying, right? The NCAA is a little bit of a farce there, and he's kind of pulling back the veil of that. And I find that to be deeply fascinating. And I find it to be deeply fascinating in a way as it connects to Jalen Hurd and his transfer out of Tennessee, which is that the reason why the NCAA continues to rake guys over the coals and continues to basically push guys around, not pay them to play sports, because we allow it to happen. And we allow it to happen with a kind of mindset that we put the sports and the college and our fan loyalty of that college in front of the person themselves. Okay. And John Crist wrote a scathing piece on Jalen Hurd and how Jalen Hurd transfers everything that's wrong with college football. Everything. Because he's a millennial. And the entitlement of that particular generation is at an all-time high. That you've got guys growing up who have basically been told from the time that they were a small child, you're amazing. You're amazing. You're amazing. You can do whatever you want. And this child is basically playing sports, having all of their peers look up to them, have all of their teachers and everybody, their parents, treat them in this sort of way. And then by the time they get to college, there's a level of entitlement there that can no longer be reversed. And there is some level of that. I don't deny that. I think that actually is a fair criticism of the millennial generation, right? Of which I am a part. Listen to Two Millennials Talk every Thursday at 7 here on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. If you want to see what I'm talking about. Entitlement at its finest. But what I'm saying is there is a certain level of that. And I think that's a very fair criticism of Jalen Hurd and of millennials as a whole, is that millennials just do whatever they want. And there was a time where you didn't get to do whatever you want. You did what you had to do. And so Jalen Hurd's decision to transfer is seen by a lot of people as him quitting on the team, of him not finishing what he started. And I don't think that that's fair because there were a few things, right? Jalen Hurd was told by the coaches that the offense was going to feature him more. The offense was going to have him kind of as a centerpiece. The scheme was going to change. And they started to run, and this is a rumor, by the way. This is pure conjecture. This is allegedly what happened. I don't actually know. I do not have sources or contacts inside the Tennessee Vols locker room. I don't have Jalen Hurd's uncle as a contact, even though this is something that he also alleges to be true. I am just saying that what is supposed to have happened is that the coaching staff basically promised Jalen Hurd a more central role in the offense. In the bowl game last year, showed him what this offense would look like, featured him more, and Jalen Hurd, who was going to transfer at the end of last season, decided to stick around one more year, only to come back and find that the offense looked the same, plays the same, doesn't feature him, doesn't have him in the role that he wanted, and now he's transferring out. And a lot of people are like, oh, look at little baby Jalen Hurd. Wah, he's going to take his ball and go home because the offense doesn't have... But I'm looking at this and going, Jalen Hurd is doing something responsible for himself. He's doing something for himself. And that is the part that we don't like. We're going to label him a child. We're going to label him a baby, a whiner, all of this stuff. But Jalen Hurd is making a decision for Jalen Hurd. And that is the part that we don't like. Because he put himself in front of the team. But you need to remember, Jalen Hurd is also a student athlete. And the student part of this, students need to be preparing for their future. And if you're Jalen Hurd and in your mind, you are not majoring in whatever course it is that course study he's taking, but you are actually majoring in football. If you actually believe that you can make it to the NFL, and he can, okay? A few NFL scouts have anonymously said, look, the dude rushed for 1,200 yards in the SEC. He's going to find a home in the NFL. He's going to be all right. All right? It's just a matter of where it is that he's going to land, which, of course, affects the amount of money that he can make and how hard he has to fight on whatever roster he winds up on, right? So you need to have good games on tape. You need these things to happen. And you can look at Jalen Hurd and go, well, you know, you haven't exactly been the bright spot of the team yourself. You've had not even a pretty disappointing season. You've had a disappointing season. People put you in the same class as Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette, which is another thing that John Christ wrote in that piece, and you are not as physically gifted as both of those guys, which, again, he isn't. That's also a fair point. But Jalen Hurd rushed for 1,200 yards in the SEC behind an offensive line that isn't great with a quarterback who is not also great. And so now he's looking at this and going, I need to be able to put good film on tape for NFL scouts and coaches. Otherwise, I'm going to find my NFL dream slipping away. And Jalen Hurd wants to make it to the NFL. That is his ultimate goal. Okay? Tennessee, it's nice to come through, but I'm coming through here on my way to the NFL. And if Tennessee's not going to give me what I need to make it to the NFL, guess what? I ain't staying. All right? And guess what? That's a decision that anybody at any college would make. If you went to a college and the college was not doing for you what you thought it would, because some people get homesick. Some people go there and find, oh, I wanted to be a doctor, and the classes that I need for med school not necessarily accepted at other schools here. Any number of reasons. You're allowed to just leave. But because it's football, but because we have this pride behind it, we put the football ahead of Jalen Hurd. And we're looking at the guy and going, he's whiny and he's trying to leave. Never mind that college football coaches leave all the time. All the time, okay? Bobby Petrino. Nick Saban left the Dolphins to go coach the Crimson Tide, all the while saying he was never going to leave the Dolphins. He spent the entire summer. I remember that summer. Nick Saban spent the entire summer telling the media, telling the world, I'm not going to Alabama. I'm not going to Alabama. I'm not going to Alabama. You hear silence from Nick Saban. All of a sudden, guess who's in Alabama? He still had time on his contract. He committed to be in Miami for 5 years, and he wasn't. So if your thing is, oh, look, Jalen Hurd committed to be with the Vols, and then he's transferring out, coaches leave when they commit to do something all the time, right? Like Brian Kelly might find himself out of Notre Dame. But before Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame, he was coaching at Cincinnati. And he left Cincinnati right before the bowl game because he signed the contract with Notre Dame. And look, I would bounce from Cincinnati to Notre Dame too, okay? The Fighting Irish can pay you more than the Bearcats can. Give you more prestige, give you better players, get you a better shot at winning a natty. You go if you've got the opportunity. But it's doublespeak to suggest that we don't have a problem with Brian Kelly bouncing over to Notre Dame, but we do have a problem with Jalen Hurd transferring out when the team is virtually not designed to have him on it. He's got NFL dreams. And you want him to dash his NFL dreams aside, his personal goals for the future of his own life for team pride, which those guys in the locker room that are choosing to stay and you have, but he doesn't have, and he doesn't have to have it. All right? I mean, that's fair. If you want to do anything in college, like anything else in college that's not sports, and I'm talking music, I'm talking art, and if you want to leave for that, nobody ever has a problem. And with the whole NBA thing too, where it's just like one example that Ben Simmons' mother gave is if you were a top violin player in the nation, right? Like just absolutely brilliant. You're a genius. And you get invited to play for the National Philharmonic Orchestra and you choose to leave after only 1 year of being in college, nobody has a problem with that. Nobody has a problem with Mark Cuban didn't finish college. Bill Gates didn't finish college. If Ben Simmons doesn't finish college, we've got a problem. Right? Like people jump colleges all the time because some colleges give you what you want and need. And Jalen Hurd doesn't think that Tennessee is giving him what he wants or needs for football, for his own football future, which I think if you've got an opportunity to make it to the NFL, you've got the physical tools and gifts to make it there, you take your shot. This is not just pampered millennial. And I do think that there is some of that in there. I'm not saying it isn't there entirely. Just that if Jalen Hurd wants to go to another school, why can't he? You're not paying him to be there. Do you understand that? This is not just baby millennial stuff. You're not paying him money. So he should be able to go wherever he wants. By the way, you have the power to block in-conference transfers, which is way too much power and a conflict of interest for a person to have, right? You've got that ability. You've got coaches jumping around wherever they feel like. How is this not a double standard of the largest degree? It isn't. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, talking about Jalen Hurd's transfer out of Tennessee, which, look, Tennessee could not have had a worse season happen to them, right? It like you start off 5-0, it's going great. Then your girlfriend dumps you, you wreck your car, and you get evicted from your apartment. Like that is the scenario that Tennessee's in. You're losing. You've lost 3 in a row. Okay, the first game you get smoked. The first game you should have won really, but turnovers. The second game you get smoked. The third game you lose to a team you should have beaten, and then your running back, your 5-star running back, transfers away. What else more, if you're a Tennessee fan, could you possibly say as a sign that just the universe hates you right now? I mean, it's all there. So I understand if you're a Tennessee fan that you're frustrated, but I think that if your default response is to turn to, well, Jalen Hurd's leaving because Jalen Hurd's a quitter, so get on out, Jalen. I think you need to think with a little bit more nuance than that. It's a bit more of a complicated situation, especially when you're thinking, if you put yourself in his shoes and you think that, I'm playing in a game against South Carolina where I only get 16 carries and 64 yards. No, I don't want to be here. I want to go somewhere else where I can get some yardage, where I can get some good film on tape so that my future employer thinks that I'm actually worth the trouble of investing in. Because right now, NFL scouts are mixed on Jalen Hurd. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. We're going to be talking about Game 6 of the World Series next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
A $500 gift card. $500? What? That's right, Funky. A $500 gift card from a store of your choice. The agents at Exit Realty Scenic City are confident they can sell your house. They can do it in 99 days or less. If your listing proves a slowpoke, they will give you a $500 gift card. No one works harder for you than agents at Exit Realty Scenic City. Licensed in Tennessee and Georgia. Exit sells quickly all types of commercial and residential properties and vacant land. Looking for a dream home, or maybe you're just a first-time home buyer? Let an agent get you started today on your house search. If you're a real estate agent looking for a change, see what Exit can do for you. Training, technology, branding, culture, and financial freedom. Again, Exit Realty Scenic City. Call 423-551-EXIT to learn more. Call 423-551-EXIT and learn more.
Terms and restrictions may apply.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis has the cash when you sell gold, silver, diamonds, rings, and jewelry. Sell Rick your precious metals today and lock in your price. Hey, Rick Davis will trade your cash for shiny, brilliant, and heavy gold. Gold cheaper now by $100 an ounce. Join the Rick Davis Silver Bonanza too. Prices so low, the Lone Ranger is bound to gallop in, Kimosabi.
Hey-ho, silver, away!
The markets are changing, so buy now. Cash, 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 and more cash for your silver and gold, gold, gold. Rick Davis, 5301 Brainerd Road. That's 5301 Brainerd Road. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Oh, and cash, cash, cash. You know where it is.
Hey-ho, silver, away!
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, TradeBank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation. 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
Expect mostly clear skies to continue through your nighttime. Overnight lows back into the mid and upper 50s. For Wednesday, another mostly sunny, warm, dry day. Highs into the lower 80s. For Thursday, increasing clouds, still warm, highs up around 80 with a late shower possible into Thursday night. The halls are decked at Abba's House Bookstore and Cafe in Hickson. Get a meaningful gift for everyone on your list and feel good that the proceeds go to missions. Download a coupon for 10% off at abbashouse.com/coupon. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Hot News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your chance to win $124 in cash and $124 in food every week with the Hot News Talk Radio 1, 2, 3, NASCAR contest.
Hot News Talk 1240.
All you have to do is guess who's going to be first, second, and third place in the upcoming NASCAR Sprint Cup race. If you guess it, you'll hear your name live Monday morning at 11:30. Then call AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio to win. Enter your guess right now at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, 5301 Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Diesel Off-Road Technology Soddy Daisy for your four-wheel drive and truck needs. Stuff and upholstery with premium rubber foam. Amigos Mexican Restaurant next to Staples and Hickson. Drink specials during the race. Cell Surgeon, the Broken Screen Doc. And Shooter's Supply, 4824 Hickson Pike in Hickson.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Enter your guesses now and listen to the race live to win $124 in cash and $124 in food from Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
I love NASCAR.
Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A gasoline pipeline explosion in Alabama kills one, injures 5 others, and gas futures are skyrocketing. This is the same pipeline that was shut down earlier, a few weeks ago, when it burst and spilled gasoline into the ground in Alabama, causing a gas shortage. Gas had to be trucked up to our area with tankers. A state of emergency was declared at that time, which has not happened now. This means the price of gas can be adjusted as the companies choose. A Chattanooga man robbed a Publix pharmacy demanding Xanax pills with a note passed to the clerk. When he received his pills, he ran away and then later called the pharmacy saying that he did not receive enough and was coming back. Police were waiting for him. He's been arrested. A Cadillac Escalade driven by Don Alexander crashed into a Toyota Prius at Highway 27 going onto I-24 eastbound, went up an embankment, flew into the air, crashed to the ground. The driver was ejected and killed. If it's going on the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Horton Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Horton Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocked him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
The voice of NASCAR.
LeBron James. How old is LeBron James? Because by some reports, LeBron James is going to be turning 30 years old at some point this NBA season. But other reports have LeBron James as still a 15-year-old boy. And I know this because of LeBron James's Halloween party, which last night was Halloween. I hope you all were safe and did safe things and put reflectors on your costume and all that good stuff. Check the candy before you ate it. / still check the candy if you haven't eaten it all yet. And check your kids' candy because that's what safe people do. LeBron James had a Halloween party and had all kinds of ridiculous props and stuff because he's LeBron and he's rich and you can afford to have it. And if you can afford to have a rich Halloween party, why wouldn't you do that? Obviously, right? That's what I would do if I had money. I don't have money. And also I don't celebrate Halloween. So there was no Halloween party forthcoming for me. But even when on things that I do celebrate, I just don't have the money to just be throwing parties. I don't like people all that much, so that doesn't help anything either. but mostly it's the money. Like you could do something, right? LeBron James didn't do something. LeBron James did the most. He did the absolute most. So LeBron James sets up a drum set with a skeleton at the drum set. It was kind of cool looking. And on the bass drum, the kick drum there at the bottom, it had the phrase 3-1 lead. The obvious reference to the 3-1 lead that the Warriors held over the Cavaliers before they completely fell apart and blew it in the NBA Finals, right? And LeBron James also had cookies at his party, which again, I like cookies. Cookies are great. But the cookies were tombstone cookies, and it said Klay Thompson and Steph Curry on the Tombstone Cookies. And obviously, the Golden State Warriors were none too pleased about LeBron James' party favors. And boy, they let the media know. Outside of Steph Curry, there was a lot of expletives thrown around in reference to this. But all I want to know is LeBron James 12? Is he 12? Somewhere between the ballpark of 12 to 15 years old? I think he might be. But the Warriors beat the Cavs the year before in the finals. And then Steph Curry came back and said that the locker room still smelled like champagne. So LeBron James and the Cavaliers, they weren't happy about that. And they are some petty people. And when I say they, I really just mean LeBron. LeBron James is a really petty dude. Like a completely petty person. Have you noticed this about LeBron? LeBron is entirely petty. LeBron James is in Cleveland, and he is working Dan Gilbert, the owner. When LeBron James tells Dan Gilbert to jump, Dan Gilbert is like, how high, LeBron? Because Dan Gilbert wrote the infamous letter that he wrote to the fan base when LeBron James chose to go to Miami, and he called LeBron James the so-called king, and the entire letter was in Comic Sans, and it was hideous, and it was ugly, and also there were typos in the letter, and the quotes weren't even in the right place. Like, that whole thing was just a gigantic mess. And he left the letter up on the website basically until the day before LeBron James came back. And LeBron James can sign a long-term contract with Cleveland. He really could. He's not going anywhere. He's staying right there. But LeBron James keeps signing one-year deals year after year after year. And do you know why? Because he wants Dan Gilbert to open up that wallet every single year to remind Dan Gilbert of why it is that there is a championship banner that says 2016 on it hanging in Cleveland. Dan Gilbert is going to eat that for the rest of his life. Why do you think that they are paying for everybody that LeBron James wants on team? LeBron wants Kevin Love. LeBron wants Amon Shumpert. LeBron wants J.R. Smith. Tristan Thompson. Like, anybody LeBron wants. It doesn't matter how much it costs or that they're overpaying some of these guys. Dan Gilbert is opening up the pocketbook. And do you know why? Because LeBron James is petty and has him by the nads. That's it. LeBron James is going to make Dan Gilbert earn back that letter for the rest of his life, or at least for the rest of LeBron's playing career. I can imagine some interesting ways that LeBron might continue to try to be petty throughout life. Right. But this, at least his Cleveland Cavaliers career, LeBron James and Dan Gilbert, tale as old as time. And the Dan Gilbert is trapped. He's trapped. So there's really nothing surprising about LeBron James and the Tombstone Cookies and the 3-1 lead, because LeBron James is going to make Steph Curry eat those words for as long as humanly possible. I mean, the trolling began the day of the NBA Finals win for the Cavs, when they went to Vegas and they partied and LeBron brought out those shirts. And look, LeBron was ready. LeBron was ready for this. He's been wanting to troll. He will be continuing to troll for the rest of his life because that's who he is. He's actually 15, which is not too much of an insult, because we had a U.S. president who once was referred to as a 12-year-old. That'd be Teddy Roosevelt. So I'm not saying, because I don't want like LeBron James to be mad at me if I ever meet him, which is right. Because I remember I think it was on it might have been the Dan Le Batard show. Dan Le Batard said something about Shaquille O'Neal, that Shaquille O'Neal wasn't the greatest leader or whatever, and Shaq on Shaq's own podcast went at Dan and went at everybody. Like, I don't want superstar NBA player coming after me. This is not the plan here. I'm just saying LeBron's mad petty, and there's actual evidence out there to suggest that. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, your home for local sports in Chattanooga. Let's talk about the World Series. Game 6. And the Cubs doing something interesting, which teams do on a micro level. On a micro level, right? Like a lot of times you won't bring out your closer as a reliever in a game because you want to be able to close out a game if you're able to get the lead. If you're trailing, right? It's sort of what's happening here. There are some bullets in this gun that the Cubs have. One of those bullets is Jake Arrieta, and they want to keep him as long as they possibly can. So they're going to pitch Arrieta in Game 7. If there's a Game 7, they're going to run Tomlin out there. Tomlin's going to be against Kluber. Kluber, who is very hard to hit, and Tomlin, who has been hit this series. Tomlin is a good pitcher. He's not unbeatable. So the Cubs are going, okay, we know this. If you pitch Arrieta in Game 7, in Game 6, you don't have him for Game 7. But if you pitch Arrieta in Game 7, there might not be a Game 7. So what do? Enter Kyle Schwarber, because now we're back in Cleveland, which means we play by the American League rules, which means Kyle Schwarber can DH and he can hit again. And Joe Madden is wasting no time. He is moving Schwarber all the way up to second. And if you remember, Kyle Schwarber came back in Game 2 of this series, and Kyle Schwarber gave the Cubs an offense that they didn't have. They need that extra gear. He provides it. And, I mean, look, Chicago can score. They can score without homers. But when you have the threat of a homer in a guy like Kyle Schwarber, it makes your game plan a lot different. It's like having Randy Moss on your team when before you had a bunch of short passing routes, okay? And you're the Patriots, and you're Tom Brady. And all of a sudden, you get to throw 50 touchdowns in a single season because you've got Randy Moss all of a sudden. That's Kyle Schwarber. He's the deep threat that rips the top off the defense. You give Kyle Schwarber an opportunity to hit a homer, he can kill people with that. And you're hoping that Schwarber has what it takes to knock Kluber around a little bit, get you on the board, and then Tomlin can hang in there. So you can still keep Arrieta. It is a gutsy plan, to be clear. It is pretty gutsy. I don't know if I would do it. Personally, I'm the guy that says we'll worry about Game 7 when we get to Game 7. I run out Arrieta tonight. Okay? You've got Kluber. You go with your best pitcher. I'm going with mine. All right? Guy was dominant last season. He continued that season this year. All of those numbers still apply. He's a very, very fantastic pitcher. I wouldn't wait till Game 7 because if you leave him in the chamber for Game 7, there might not be Game 7. Right? Like I understand the thinking behind that, but legitimately might not be a Game 7 for them. So this is going to be interesting. I'd like to see Game 7 in the World Series. Mostly for two reasons. One, having Chicago really make a deep run, I think that's great for baseball. I do. And then on top of that, when you've got a Game 7 in a World Series in a year that you've also had a Game 7 in an NBA Finals, I mean, that's just a great sports year. And let me tell you something. We need a great sports year because 2016 has been a bad year in just about every other way imaginable. We've had creepy clowns. We have Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton as options to vote for. We haven't had a great 2016. Like, this is the worst football we've watched. Like, in terms of how 2016 could have gone, Alabama's still good. Look, I need something to cheer for. Game 7 in the World Series, not a bad thing to have to cheer for. No? Like, are we agreed on that? I think that we can agree on that. Now, I have been thinking about nightmare scenarios because that's what I do just in my spare time. When things can go horribly, horribly wrong, I often wonder, how can we get to the point where things go horribly, horribly wrong? And you know what? I thought of a nightmare scenario that nobody wants to hear. This is Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. What if Tennessee loses to Tennessee Tech? Right? Like, it's because for me, it's like engineering. Engineering, you design a bridge, you design a structure, and then you start to do stress tests on it. How much can it hold up if there's weight on this end? If there's 100 pounds here, if there's 200 pounds here, if there's 300 pounds here, and you start doing stress tests on different things. The stress test of Butch Jones, because I hear so much talk about Butch Jones being on the hot seat. Some people believe he is. Some people believe he isn't. I don't believe he's on the hot seat. I believe his seat is a little bit toasty and a little bit warm. But like, what would it take to either get Butch Jones to the hot seat or prove that he is in fact on the hot seat? Would a loss to Tennessee Tech this Saturday put Butch Jones on the hot seat? Because you've got to believe that at that point, the fan base would have completely turned on. Right? Like, at that point, the fan base completely turns. Because I feel like a good portion of the fan base has turned on Butch Jones already, like they do every season. All right, I remember last year, after last year's Florida game, you had the Oklahoma game, disappointing, bad loss, and then the Florida game, like immediately afterwards, just back-to-back horrible losses for Tennessee really early in the season, and it looked like, well, Tennessee's just going to have another one of those years that we've all grown accustomed to before they finally turned it around and started playing some good football in the second half of that season. But when you're looking at a team that had those bad losses, like, people were already turning on Butch Jones then. Like, Tennessee fans are so traumatized. You are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. The very instant something starts to go wrong, you turn on the coach. And I get it, right? Like, the trauma is real. You have had so many horrible coaches, just bad coaches. Like, that's where you first turn, even when it doesn't make any sense. Like, when you look at what Butch Jones has done to this program in terms of reviving it and revitalizing it and bringing it back to some level of respectability, because I don't think that there is anything disrespectful about the games that Tennessee lost this season. Because Tennessee has lost some games in the past that, like, disgrace the whole legacy of Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's lost any games that have been disgraceful. A&M game, not disgraceful. Disappointing. Close. Fun game. Not disgraceful. Bama game, okay, you got whipped by Bama. Who hasn't been? Now you're on the list. You've joined the list of people who got whipped by Bama. Congratulations. What, are you alone in that? No, you're not. South Carolina, bad loss. Is a bad loss. Disrespectful loss, though. Like, South Carolina hasn't been great, but trust me, they are better than what we thought they were going to be. We didn't expect them to find their footing this fast under Muschamp. We expected them to look like South Carolina last season, and they don't. Their defense is strong and solid, even though they've got freshmen everywhere. Bentley, that guy, freshman quarterback, true freshman. Right? Turning out to be a pretty big part of their team. Big player. Rico Dowdle as a running back. Is he inconsistent? Is he streaky? Yeah. But he's young and he's good. So, yeah, we got a South Carolina team that's better than we all thought they were, which, I'm starting to sound like Denny Green a little bit, but they're not who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook. Regardless, that's not a disrespectful loss. It's a bad loss. It's not a disrespectful loss. And I think that's what it would take for Butch Jones to be fired. And I don't think he's going to give you one of those. I don't think Butch Jones is going to give you a justification for him to be fired. If you are in the camp of people that's like, Butch Jones ought to be fired, it's not because Butch Jones gave you a justification to be fired. You may not like the way he talks in interviews. You may not like the way he sounds. I'm not even a Tennessee fan, and I don't like the way he sounds. It bothers me. It's annoying. it is more annoying than Jay Cutler's face. If Butch Jones' words had a face, you would punch it. And it would be reflexive. You wouldn't even have a choice. You wouldn't have control of your own fist. It would just launch the moment he started talking. Right? Like, it's frustrating and annoying, and it sounds bad after losses. Like, after close wins, it's annoying. After losses, disappointing losses, I'm shocked that you don't hear the news that, like, Tennessee fans in uniform throw their TV out of the window. Right? Shoe lodged in television after Butch Jones' press conference. You know, it's that level of frustrating because he seems disconnected with the reality of how it is that his team lost and underperformed. But I don't think he is. I just think he's being very vague. Butch Jones is the physical argument against political correctness. There is a point at which political correctness matters and means something and is actually good, which I hear people arguing against it all the time, and I don't understand that. Saying whatever you want whenever you want is not a good thing. It's not something that society ought to be encouraging. No, just say whatever. I don't like this PC culture that we're in. Just say whatever you want. No. Otherwise, all kinds of racial slurs would be allowed that ought not to exist. All kinds of things would happen that doesn't need to happen. No, I'm for some level of political correctness. Butch Jones talking is the argument against that. Butch Jones talking is what happens when you are politically correct all the time. He's the other end of the spectrum. He doesn't want to offend anybody. He doesn't want to really say anything against any of his players. He doesn't want to say anything against anybody in the media. So Butch Jones says a lot of words and basically nothing comes out of his face. And when you combine that with the crew cut and just the kind of look that he always has, you just explode. You watch Tennessee, you watch them lose, then you watch that man in a press conference, and you just erupt. As any normal person would. I get it. But he hasn't done anything worthy of being fired. That's not worthy of being fired. It's just annoying. It's just infuriating. It's not a fireable offense. Being boring, being PC is not a fireable offense. Okay? Thusly, Butch Jones would actually have to hand you something on the football field that would give him reason to be fired. Like a loss to Tennessee Tech. And he has not done anything yet, and there is no good reason to believe that he will. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. One more thing about Jalen Hurd's transfer before I go. Jalen Hurd has an opportunity to transfer. It's actually something that he is allowed to do. And it's something that not only he, but many other student athletes have taken advantage of. People who are wondering what it is with this culture of college football players and transferring, and the difference is they've realized they can do it. That's all. They have the ability to do it, so they do it. I mean, Charles Barkley was, ragging on Kevin Durant, and I remember when LeBron James went down to Miami, he did the same thing to LeBron, just completely talking about how, back in my day, we would never have done that. I would never have gone on a team with Jordan. I would never have, gone on a team with Bird. I get it. Again, I understand. There is a level of nuance that has to happen here, okay? Guys back in the day played tough. You can't argue that the NBA back in the day actually was a meaner NBA. At the ends of games today, guys give each other daps. They give each other big hugs. You didn't have that back then. I mean, you had guys actually punching each other out on a basketball floor, which you would never see in today's game, the way it's officiated. And nor should we. I'm not arguing that we go back to the day where Robert Parrish is just punching Bill Laimbeer in the face. Okay? I'm not arguing that we go back to that. I'm just saying you would never see that today. The league was meaner. But one other reason why guys never played and tried to form these super teams and played with each other, and Barkley never played with Jordan, and you never saw Patrick Ewing on the same team with a Magic Johnson. The reason why you didn't see these things is because you couldn't do it back then. The contracts were longer. The collective bargaining agreement didn't even allow for you to do that. Because there are guys that you start to get to a certain point in your career and you're like, look, my legacy is what matters. I need to win a ring. We all talk about how, look, LeBron James, he's fighting for rings with Jordan now, and he's got 4 rings, but we forget the fact that we really criticized him for going down and getting 3 of those in Miami with 2 other guys that were drafted in the top 10 in his draft class. We forget about that. LeBron did it because he could, because it was allowed. Durant did it because he could, because it was allowed. And guess what? Jalen Hurd did it because he could, because it was allowed. You've been listening to Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, giving me just a little bit of your time. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch. And I'll see you in 24 hours, but don't you go anywhere. Alex Jones is up next.
You give us 12